What are the things that are important for people to know?
Oh, a word that I just heard you say right now, create. Get to create it. And that's something which, again, I think a lot of people are just victims of life. They're not really taking charge of their life, and you get to create your own life.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mind Shift Show. And today we are having a special guest, Dr. David Wheeler, who will be giving us an amazing insight on what it is to be present, get support, and a lot of other topics that we'll be going through. So hold on, this is going to be amazing. Welcome, Dr. David Wheeler.
Well, thank you very much, Rocio. So I just a little bit of a background, which is I am a college professor and I teach psychology. And in particular, the course that's relevant to this is called the psychology of adjustment. And so that's what I would really like to talk with you about today is adjusting, how you can adjust, and like what are some of the changes you can make to adjust.
And that's so important because we talk about, not many people talk about the psychology of adjustment. How do we adjust? How do we adjust to a new paradigm, a new behavior, a new anything? Tell us, what are some of the key components that you'd say, here's the definition of adjustment?
Mm.
And give us an example of what that looks like in real life.
Okay. So for adjustment, I looked this up in the dictionary, and the dictionary says it's small movements towards a goal. And I like that, except from the psychology point of view, it seems like small is just insignificant. So
Mhm.
I like to think of it more as intentional, incremental adjustment towards a goal.
I love that idea. So intentional and incremental, because sometimes we jump into change so quickly. We want to go from point A to point B, and we start in, let's assume that we're going into a coaching program. It's like, give me all the insights right here, right now. And what happens when we don't adjust? So we'll be talking about that as well. What does it look like for somebody not to adjust in a way that allows their growth?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think of any examples with me. Um, sort of recently, well, let's just say with weight loss. I mean, this one of the big things. This is something that I've been working on, and with weight loss, it's like, okay, I want to lose, 50 pounds, and if I go into it saying I want to lose 50 pounds tomorrow, it will be not happening,
All
right?
right.
No matter what happens, no matter how much advice I get, no matter how well I eat, how much exercise I do,
You
it'll
can't even
never.
go into a sauna, right? And sweat it out
Yeah,
24 hours. It's humanly impossible.
yeah, and so it's like a setup for failure if you do that. If you try to get all the way to your goal in something like that, and I think a lot of people don't even think about it. I mean, with weight loss, that's a physical thing, but just in like relationships. If you want to have different relationships with people, you're going to, you can't change your relationships. You can't change who you're being overnight, but just a little bit of change every day or every week or every year will make a difference.
And I believe that happens a lot, especially in the personal development field. I know I have participants that come into my events. They come in on a Friday night or Saturday morning, and by Sunday midday, they're like, I don't want to be around other people now. I can only, do the positivity. They've shifted relatively quickly.
Hmm.
Yet everybody else in their environment is in the same place and they want them to change that fast. Yet this person's been going, or people in general have been listening to self help for years. They've taken courses, and all of a sudden they have these major breakthroughs and want everybody else to be there with them. So, what would you give? What type of advice would you give somebody as they're going through the process so that they can make those small incremental changes that are consistent?
Well, you brought up a couple things there. One is having a coach, having someone external that you would rely on for feedback, because a lot of times you can't see it yourself. It's like you have a goal, you want to get there, and then having an external person which says, no, you know what? This might be a more reasonable approach. This might be a better way to approach it.
And maybe you're not quite there yet, right? There's a
Yeah.
process, there's a system into it. Give us some examples of what it looks like in your classrooms in general when you're coaching people, whether it's inside of of a classroom setting or inside of a coaching setting.
Hmm. Well, I'm just thinking about. Well, another thing is that a lot of times people don't even know what the real change is that they want.
Mm,
So I had a person once who went through a weekend program and was just feeling depressed and just feeling like there wasn't any purpose in life.
mm.
And at the end, because she was saying is that all that I do is I take care of the grandkids and I do the laundry. And on Monday morning, she gets up and says, "You know what? The purpose of life is taking care of the grandkids and doing the laundry, and that's a good enough purpose." Right? So she changed what her goal was. She changed her perspective on life in that amount of time.
Wow. And what a privilege to be able to be present in that moment and find the beauty of what is the purpose of life. The purpose of life is to enjoy our grandchildren, to keep moving and doing the things that need to be done because sometimes we don't want to do those things.
Yeah,
Life is supposed to be more complicated.
right. So I was actually just doing some personal discovery over the last week, um, and do this by journaling. Just have a prompt, and then I journal about the prompt. And then the prompt was, "What do you get when you go beneath the surface?" And what I found out is that, for me, what there is beneath the surface is another surface and another surface and another surface. So it's like having deep thoughts isn't really necessary. It really is just, doing the things that are everyday life and enjoying life.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. And then there's another surface, and it's interesting when you said that. I keep on thinking about like the roots and what's underneath the roots, right? There's that layers upon layers upon layers upon layers that you get to go through. What would you say as somebody's like shifting, they're beginning, they get that it's going to be incremental? What are the type of things that they're going to be seeing as a result of going through this process when they're taking their time and they're really allowing that psychology of adjustment to move on in their favor, right? We don't want to stress ourselves out, but really to incorporate those small incremental changes.
Mhm. So I think one of the things that people see, I have them do a behavioral change project. So that take their baseline for 2 weeks where they just are observing a behavior they want to change. And then they pick just one little part of it that they want to change. And then they look at themselves for the next 2 weeks doing that one change. So it might be something like uh, wanting to not be tired in the morning. And then they find out that what's happening is that they're spending the evening scrolling on their phone, going through TikToks and whatever. And so then the incremental change there would be to just set a time where you're going to put the phone aside. And, okay, well, you no longer have the phone, and so you can go to sleep.
Mhm, mhm. And becoming observer of self to take a
Right.
look at what behaviors am I doing. I once heard a gal who loved tortillas and she would eat 10, 12 tortillas a day. And she's like, one day she's like, okay, cold turkey, I quit, no more tortillas. And 3 weeks later, she quit the program because it was too much of a change too fast.
Yeah.
Right. That's where we see this yo-yo effect. I lose weight and it comes back, and I lose weight and it comes back. And as opposed to incremental change that leads into a lifestyle, right? Am I losing something over and over again, or am I creating a way of life?
Hmm. Like that. So
Mhm.
it's creating a new way of being, and you can't create a new way of being overnight.
No, and you and I have been talking about this for a number of years already. Like, what does it look like on an ongoing basis? And we've seen each other evolve as well as our practices and people that we work with. What is one story that stands out to you about this topic?
Hmm. Story that stands out about adjustment. Well, I would say just again, looking at my life, um, you know, I was in a training program about 9 years ago, and I was asked by my coach what it was that my purpose in life was. And it was like, okay, this is easy because I've thought about this a lot. And my purpose in life is to get people started on a life that they love. And that's what I do with my students. And then she said, and what if that weren't your purpose? I'm like, oh my, what if that weren't my purpose? And then I said, well, I would just be hanging out by the pool and doing gardening. And this is where I am these days. I'm still teaching. I'm still getting people started on a life they love. And I am hanging out by my pool and gardening. So it's like over those 9 years, I've gradually increased the focus on my own personal growth, my own personal happiness. And I'm still helping others, but I'm still, that was an incremental change. It wasn't sudden. It was, again, over the course of 9 years.
Right, and it takes the time that it takes. I remember I was working with a personal trainer, a fairly new personal trainer. I love what he had done to transform his body, other people's bodies. And I remember the first day I show up at the gym, I'm excited. I'm like, yes, I'm going to be doing vertical jumps at some point. And so I thought. And this day, day one, he had me doing 18-inch vertical jumps on day one. I blew up my knee.
All right.
And for months, it took me to recover from that experience. It's like, wow. Had I been going, hey, maybe let's start out with 6 inches. Can you do 6-inch jump? Can we, in a number of weeks, can we do a 12-inch jump or 9-inch or 12-inch or whatever? Just continually, incrementally going in that process would have been different. And I remember my second personal trainer, which was 6 months down the line from this experience, she took me slowly. Let's
Mhm.
go. Let's make sure that you can move that. What's your gait? Watching me, seeing what my capacity was. How do you move? How do your feet move? How's your body moving? How are you lifting? I, everything about me she knew. And that helped me tone really, really fast. And it made it sustainable. Although the changes were incremental, they kept on going slowly. The results were actually faster as a result of not focusing on what speed do I need to go. I was going at my own pace.
Yeah. And what I hear when you say that is I hear like you're building a baseline.
Mm,
So you have to build the fundamentals. You've got to build the strength. And it might not even look like you're working towards a goal. And that's again one of those things that the coach, the personal trainer, they've got the expertise to look at that and say, okay, I know you want to go to here with a goal, but here's the base that you need to get. Here's the foundation you need to get before you can start building towards that goal.
mm, yeah, and that's beautiful that you can get to create that and making sure that you have the foundation. What other things are important for people to know?
Well, a word that I just heard you say right now, create. You get to create it. And that's something which, again, I think a lot of people are just victims of life. They're not really taking charge of their life, and you get to create your own life.
Mm,
And the thing that I really like about working with other people is I get to co-create it with them. So that means that I get input from them and I generate something that I would not have generated just by myself.
Mhm, and that's magical. I love the fact that you said, like, sometimes we're not even aware that we have the power within us to create whatever life that it is that we desire, whatever. It's not like somebody waves a magic wand and say, "Here you go, David. You are now," there's no magic genie, there's no magic wand that gives us that. It is us that get to create. Like, we're the only ones that can create. And I think about, like, the puppy here. I'm like, the puppy could only be a puppy. He's gonna lay down. What do we say? It's a dog's life. Like, life happens to him. He gets fed. His tummy gets rubbed. He goes on walks. We take him on walks. It's not like he gets to go and even fill his own water bowl. He can't do that. Eh,
Mhm.
we, on the other hand, can become anything and everything that we desire as long as we choose to create, and even more powerful when we choose to co-create, creating with another, which I love that word. It's the whole co-creation. There's the magic that comes and happens as a result of simply being present and being open to the experience.
And the other part is persistence. So it's not just like, okay, it didn't work this week, so I'm going to give up on it. It's something which with you have a goal and you are going to work towards it, and you can create anything you want. And you probably can't create anything you want or everything you want overnight, but you can create what you want in your life over a longer period of time.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't there a quote that says we underestimate or overestimate first what we can do in a short period of time and underestimate what we can do in a longer period of time?
Yeah.
And as we keep on looking back at things and celebrating, I always look back at my life and I'm like, wow, Rocio, you've come a long way. Today I was chatting with who used to be a neighbor 15 years ago, almost to the date. And she's like, wow, Rocio, I didn't know you were creating all this on the back end. And I'm like, wow, yes, it seems a little overwhelming to see the projects to fruition. It's more than what I thought. I made a decision on October 20th, 2009 that I would dedicate the rest of my life to the personal development field. Once I embraced my calling, my purpose and my passion, and started building from there. And looking back at it, I never envisioned this where I'm at today. Like having the university, the TV show, the game, the community, the guild, the everything that goes along with it. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of people don't see that. A lot of people, um, let's see, well, so I'm just thinking of one particular individual. He was actually close to my age and feeling like he wanted to do something more with his life, but feeling like, okay, his life is over or whatever. And when I talked with him about it, it was like, well, what he wanted to do was um, bring a message to African American teen males, right? And that was his goal that he wanted to get, but he felt well he couldn't make a difference.
Mhm.
And the suggestion I made to him was that he just reach out to one or two people. You know, start with that one or two people, and then you don't know where it's going to go after that. Because with the one or two people, you learn, you find out what your real passion is, and you can then keep on building off of that.
Well, and we all get to do that. Find what your passion is. Find what your passion is, and it's the 1, 2 people that give us the confidence. Taking that courageous action to get started, boosting our confidence, and really our vision, just expanding it. What's possible? Jim Rome used to say, "Go far and go as far as you can, and then go further." And I think it's like the headlights when you're driving in the middle of the night. That
Mhm,
things keep on revealing themselves as you move along.
mhm.
So, what last minute tips would you give someone as they're going on this amazing journey of transformation and creating a new way of being, which results in an entirely new person?
Well, I think the first step that a lot of people don't take is they have to give up who they are. The first thing you have to do is not not hang on to the person that you known yourself to be for your whole life because you haven't gotten what you want to get. Right? You are where you are now based on whatever you got or whatever you did earlier in life. And so the first step is to actually just say, hey, things can be different. And then once they can be different, that's when you then start thinking about here's how I want them to be different and start then gathering the resources, gathering the people, whatever you need in order to get where you want to go.
Mhm. I think that's fascinating because we're always thinking like, "This is who I am." Actually, that's who we became to be,
Hmm.
right? This is where as far as we've gotten at this point in our life, and now we can continue to evolve, create. An athlete doesn't say, "Hey, I'm a quarterback right now, and that's it." No, they want the trophy, they want the recognition, they wanna be in the Hall of Fame. There's always another level of becoming, and through that level, even within the same role, there's the distinctions that we see within each of those roles. Is there anything else that you wanna share with our audience?
Practice. You bringing up this thing with the athletes. I mean, this is how they get to be where they are the world class athletes. 'Cause they don't go out one day and say, "Oh, I'd like to do it." No, they practice 1, 2, 3 hours a day on whatever it is that they're going to be doing.
Right, and perfect practice makes perfect, not practice, right? There's a distinction within those 2.
Hmm.
We may be practicing the wrong thing or the wrong technique from the people who may not even know what the technique is.
Right. And that's being guided by an expert in the field, someone who already has the expertise and knows where things should be going.
Mhm. And that's interesting because today I delivered a global webinar and at people from all over the world. And one of them turned around and said, "Hey, here's a YouTube video." And I'm like, let's put on the brakes there for just a moment and understand that just because somebody puts that on social media in TikTok or Facebook or YouTube, does that mean that it's accurate? And does that mean that it's a universal approach? We keep on thinking that everybody has the same need or we were all composed in the same way, that we learned exactly the same thing. It's not the case. We're all whole, perfect, unique individuals who have a very different perspective because our life experiences shaped us. Well, Dr. Wheeler, thank you so much for being here today. Thank you for your insights, for touching on the psychology of adjustment, how to adjust, some of the tips. We really appreciate your time for being here today.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you. And to our viewers, listeners, I invite you to take 5 minutes, do 3 things that are going to help you level up. Is it something that you want to incrementally change and understand that we're always in the process of becoming? So it's through that practice, as Dr. Wheeler shared with us, that we begin to incorporate those new behaviors that we choose to. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode.